Good day, everyone, and welcome to this webinar, Secure Your Enterprise Data with Cato DLP. My name is Demetrius Booth, Director of Product Marketing. Myself and my colleague, Ron Kogan, Product Manager for Data Security, we're going to take you to a little journey today discussing how Cato can help you secure your data, your sensitive data, and protect it from all sorts of threats. Now, before we get into our webinar, a couple little housekeeping items. Um, we want to encourage everyone to put all of your questions in the Q&A box, and we're going to get to it towards the end of the webinar. And I'd also like to point you to the resources tab. There we have material from our previous our CASB webinar that you can download and consume that as well. So this is our agenda for today, and we're just going to step through the data security risk landscape, how Cato DLP works. We're going to listen to a customer story, then we're going to have a little bit of a demo, and then we're going to discuss some things that are coming, then a wrap up, then our Q&A. So one of the things that I want to call out is that within our last webinar, we discussed CASB and how it goes beyond static bolt-on defenses to an AI native security framework. So instead of treating cloud app security as a standalone tool, Cato converges CASB with Secure Web Gateway, Next-Gen Firewall, and other security tools. And all of this is delivered through a single cloud native engine. So today we're going to be focusing on DLP, a data loss prevention, and how it actually operates in the broader context of the Cato SASE platform as well. And rather than being a standalone DLP engine that is bolted onto CASB, DLP is natively embedded across the entire security stack, similar to CASB. So when CASB provides that visibility and control over cloud apps, DLP comes along and adds deeper content inspection and policy enforcement that ensures sensitive data is consistently protected, whether it is in motion, it rests in SaaS, or accessed via remote users. It's unified AI-driven protection across every channel. So let's talk a little bit about the data security risk landscape. So data loss, it used to be primarily an endpoint problem. Then came email as another gateway, then the network, and now we have SaaS and cloud that has made data everywhere, has placed it everywhere. And now as we move on, we have AI as an accelerator for this. Every new layer expands the escape route, so to speak, whether we're talking copy paste, uploads, sharing links, and so forth. If you protect only one channel, then you're basically opening up other channels for your data to be compromised. So it's quite simple. A multi-channel security risk, it requires a multi-channel security solution in order to ensure that your data is completely secure and protected. And Gartner agrees with this perspective. As you see here in this quote, by 2027, a good portion of CISOs are going to have to adopt a consolidated approach to address both insider risk as well as data exfiltration. So put it in short, by next year, CISOs are going to be looking at a converged approach like a Cato SASE platform that's going to help them secure their sensitive data across their entire enterprise real estate. So at this point, this brings us to our very first poll question. So this question is, where's your organization in its data security journey? And I will give everyone about 30 seconds to answer the question. Let's give it about another 10 seconds. Okay, perfect. Thank you so very much for your participation. So let's talk a little bit about Cato and how it actually goes about protecting sensitive data resources. So Cato it operates in four, quite frankly, straightforward and easy steps. First, we begin by profiling sensitive data. Okay, this is the act of creating profiles, understanding the data, and understanding where it lives and how we can protect it. Next, we actually want to set the actual policies that's going to allow us to implement the data loss protection strategy for your sensitive data. And then next, we are going to look at the policy enforcement. So basically, how the protections apply to specific user requests. And then we're going to look at the investigation of these threats. So basically how we are actually correlating this to understand at a deeper level what those particular threats or actions were. So let's first begin with the profiling stage. Okay, so our DLP, it supports more than 550 types out of the box. We're talking social security numbers or national ID numbers, credit cards, and so forth. Now, these data types are grouped in 8 compliance categories, and we're talking II, PCI, HIPAA, and more than 30 country-specific categories. Now, beyond the predefined and customer data types, we also make it possible to define your own custom data types as well. And then finally, Cato's DLP, it has an advanced engine that extends the data protection for sensitive information. So we're talking OCR, optical character recognition, exact data match, EDM, the ability of training your own data. So this is a capability that allows organizations to define custom sensitive data patterns that are unique to their business or their industry. And then of course we have ML classification for that enhances the data protection by using machine learning to automatically identify specific sensitive classified sensitive data based on the context and the intent, and not just patterns or keywords. So let's have an example of the last portion here, the ML-based classification within DLP. So most DLP, it's basically a good reader of information. Okay, so you consider a good reader of information, but with a little bit of like a conflicting eyesight. So basically, it can run a scan across text, it can run OCR, and pretty much that's it. But modern data leaks today, they don't always show up as clean data. Okay, it can show up as a screenshot of a passport photo or a photo of a payment card, or an AutoCAD drawing, for example, that never had any kind of extractable data to begin with. So we expand this protection beyond just the text itself with a machine learning based classification. So we have an image classifier that goes through and understands what it's looking at, not just what it can read. And the benefit here is quite straightforward and simple. You have fewer blind spots, you have fewer, how did this data get out sort of moments in your environment, and it provides that real protection, for the stuff that typical OCR, for example, would actually miss. So the next phase is the policy setting itself. So here is just a simple example of how we want to allow R&D group to be able to download specific files. In this case, it's their CAD files. So we have different definitions or actions or categories, where first here, we want to allow only the R&D group to do something specific, and the group or the source is going to be R&D. What we want to allow them to do, their action or the activity, is the download. And then we want them to be able to download a CAD file. But we also want to ensure that anyone who is not within the R&D group that they cannot download that same CAD file or any of those specific files. So this is a straightforward example of how we're actually setting the policy criteria that's going to protect that particular file or that sensitive data from a particular group. So anyone that is not within R&D. And this brings us to our second poll question. So what is the biggest challenge you have with protecting sensitive data? And I will give everyone 30 seconds to answer this question. Okay, we have a lot of good responses. So let's give it another 10 seconds. Mhm. Well, the answers are equally distributed pretty much. Okay. Okay, great. I want to thank everyone for your participation and your responses. Now, so we've covered the profiling and the policy setting. So let's now talk about how we're actually enforcing the policies. So when people say protect the data, the real question is, where do you expect it? Okay, so with Cato data protection, we don't just look at it from one viewpoint. We take it from two angles here. So from inline inspection, this catches the data that is in motion across both your sanctioned and your unsanctioned apps. So you can block, coach, alert, or monitor and do all this stuff in real time. And then we also have the API inspection that actually looks inside of your sanctioned SaaS environment. So it looks at what's already sitting there, what got shared, what's drifting out of policy and so forth. Okay, so together they give you complete holistic, or what I like to call 360-degree protection, and it does so in real time. And it also provides that deep visibility, and all of this is tied back to one DLP brain per se in the cloud. Okay, so this is part of the Cato SASE and SSE platform, and all of this is core to helping to protect your sensitive data. Now, inline controls, they're really good, okay, when the traffic actually goes through your security. But we all know that SaaS doesn't always ask our permission for where it wants to go. Okay, so a user can actually share a file. It can invite an external collaborator, or it can access data from an unmanaged device and actually never, ever, ever touch your network path. So that's why we add an out of band API inspection. So with this, we connect directly to the cloud app, audit user activity, we scan the context, and then we take action. And that action can be one of numerous things. It can be alert on the violation. It can be restricting the sharing, quarantining the file, and so forth. So the result here is a unified enforcement story, whether the user is remote, in the office, IoT adjacent, you name it. Cato can still limit the access and the blast radius per se to limit the amount of damage, potential damage, that this unmanaged user is inflicting. So as we all know, you have to be able to see and recognize the data in order to be able to protect it. And sensitive isn't just one thing; it's a broad spectrum. Okay, so some data is clearly defined, such as PII or PCI, while other data is a bit, is not well defined. So we look at additional things like intellectual property and source code. These are other things that are about sensitive data. So we're talking sensitive data awareness. So we have the ability of identifying what that specific data is, how sensitive it is, and then enforce the right policy action against it. So, for example, we can allow just a low risk labeled data to go through, or we can stop and control stuff that can be really harmful to the business. And in this case, PCI or PII type data, or we can just allow, like low risk data to come through. So basically, all of this is just the same policy, the same engine. So wherever the users are connecting, wherever the data is traveling, whether you're remote or in the office or unmanaged, we have the ability again of limiting the action, limiting the access in that particular action, thus limiting the damage, potential damage that can be done with that particular data. Now, the final piece here, which is the investigation. Okay, so their security teams, they don't necessarily have a problem with the data itself. It tends to be the quality of the data or the actual signal that they're having a problem with. And what I mean by that is the quality of the signal or the data. So DLP can generate numerous alerts, millions of alerts, and most of it is quite frankly noise until you actually start putting everything together and connecting the dots. This is where correlation changes the game. Cato takes these weak signals, so basically slow moving signals or hidden threats, and you know, and it looks at things such as what we have classified here, the unusual sign-in locations, traffic to low popular domains, and so forth. And we stitch all of these signals together, and we do so into a single human readable DLP story. Okay, so now you're not necessarily hunting for that needle in the haystack. You are actually reading the entire plot per se. So you're looking at your C2 communications via compromised credentials and so forth. And based upon this, you can now act fast in order to remediate that particular threat. And this comes to poll question number 3. So what concerns you most about data loss today? And I will give everyone about 30 seconds to answer this question. Okay, another 10 seconds. Interesting responses. Okay. Okay, fantastic. Thank everyone for your participation and responding to these questions. And let's continue. So at this point, I could sit here all day long and tell you how great our DLP solution is, but I think it's best to hear it from one of our customers. So I'd like to introduce Alfred Sobrino. He's a CISO of PlayPower, and I'd like to allow him to tell you his story with using our DLP.
Power is a very unique company. We are the global leader in commercial playgrounds, floating boat docks, shade structures, site amenities, and a whole lot of playground related products. It all starts with awareness. You cannot manage what you don't know about. So, in order to keep Play Power safe and ensure that its most vital assets, which is the data, is safe, we lean heavily on CASP and DLP. For us, we were looking for a comprehensive solution to give us full visibility and optics into all the cloud applications. Because, like everything else out there, you have applications that are centrally managed by IT, and then you have applications and services that other people use. You want to be aware of those. Sometimes most people don't have the ability or the capability to be aware of that, because somebody with a credit card can sign up for a service very easily. And we have seen a lot of people, upload files to ChatGPT they shouldn't. And Caspi provides us visibility into which AI tools are being used, whether they are approved or shadow AI, what employees are doing, allowing us to enforce usage policies. I would say right off the bat, I would have probably needed a minimum of 2 FTEs on the IT security team, that this would be their full-time job to monitor these flows. So right off the bat, this is a force multiplier that we don't need those bodies out there. So CASB and DLP together give us a lot of controls out there to help us with the governance and compliance framework.
Okay, so as you see, that Alfred is a very satisfied customer, and we've been able to do a lot of really good things for him. So at this point, I would like to turn it over to my colleague Ron Kogan, and he's going to walk you through a demo of our DLP solution. Ron, over to you.
Thank you, Dimitris. Now let's get into the product to see DLP in action. Demo time. So our starting point would be to select a use case. We want to protect our data eventually, but we still need to decide what use case do we tackle first. We can decide that we go for protecting our intellectual property, like our source code or something that is very unique to our organization. We can decide that we want to be PCI compliant, and then we will monitor for PII. We can decide that we want to prevent financial data leakage or to tackle insider risk data exfiltration. And there are many, many use cases, and we need to start by selecting one of them. So let's start with protecting intellectual property. In our case, source code. So let's see it in action. Our first step would be to configure the DLP based on our use case. So in the CMA, the Cato management application, we'll go to security, data types and profiles, DLP profiles. And this is basically the place where we actually manage the data entities, which are called data profiles, that would be monitored or blocked based on our policy. It can be credit cards, PII, source code, financial data, legal information, and so on, based on the use case. And the building blocks of the DLP profile are the data types. We provide out of the box hundreds of different data classifiers from different categories, compliances, countries based on the use case. You can also create your own classifiers. You can pull labels from your Microsoft Purview and Google Drive, Google labels. You can also use our AI classifiers, machine learning classifiers, capable of identifying and detecting sensitive data within complex or unstructured data. You can also provide your own samples data for training the model, so we can be able to detect sensitive information tailored to your organization. And it doesn't matter if it's textual data or image-based data, we will be able to detect it all. So now we understand the data types, the building blocks, and the data profiles, and we've built our profile based on the use case. In that case, it would be source code. What it is recommended to do now is to create an equivalent end user notification whenever the policy is violated, because we want to educate the end users that they will not do this same violation all over again, and therefore we will be able to reduce the human error. So the idea here is basically to create a dedicated template, a custom template for user notification that will educate the user and alert them in real time about their violation. So it can be AI blog page, it can be a dedicated notification for the sales team, or alert based on the use case as source code leakage, financial data leakage, and so on. So once we basically build that, we have the DLP profile and the equivalent end user notification, we are good to go and start building the policy. We'll go to security, app and data inline, and this is the place where we actually manage the DLP policy. We can create policies for PII sharing with AI, source code leakage, and so on, based on the use case. And we can just enable it with a flip of a toggle because we are in the Cato platform. So let's start by creating a simple rule for, as an example, for source code leakage via email, which is a common use case for data exfiltration. So we'll select the category of the application to be email applications. We will select the activity to be file uploads or attachments or a email. The DLP profile would be in that case source code, but we can select any DLP profile that we've created. It can be for financial data or something else. The action in that case would be to block it. And we will select the relevant end user notification for user education. In that case, the source code security alert, which shows source code leakage detected in case of a policy violation. So now we've built an inline policy, but we also want to build the equivalent policy in the API protection to protecting data in our business critical apps. This is near real-time protection where we can manage and detect also source code in our case, in our business critical apps. In that case, we are looking at Google Drive. We will be able to detect all source code that is publicly available or externally shared, and you can decide what action will we take. We just want to monitor it, remove the share, quarantine these files. Again, we have the same policies in inline and API for detecting sensitive data. So now let's see DLP in action. The first use case would be insider risk. An employee managed to actually get his hands on Cato's source code, but the source code also contains AWS keys and secrets. And the employee decides to actually exfiltrate it and leak this data and forward it to his friend. So he will access the AWS account of Cato and steal as much data as he can. And this is what exactly he's been doing here. He's forming this mail to his friend from his managed device, forwarding the source code that he found containing the access keys and tokens of the AWS account, as you can see here. And this is exactly the file that he was trying to upload, source code, and we can see it contains the access key ID and AWS secrets in that case. And whenever we will try to upload it, it will immediately get blocked. It will get a dedicated alert, source code leakage detected, and the upload will be failed, meaning in that case, we prevented potential breach. Our next example would be PII protection. An innocent employee in that case is using his own free version of ChatGPT, as you can see here, and he's chatting with the chat. And in many cases, the free versions are basically the ones who train on our data. And you ask it to summarize the following file, but the file it actually contains personal identifiers of other employees, names, driver license IDs, and of course we want to be compliant and to prevent such case. So the minute he tries to upload the file, he's getting blocked and getting a notification of personal data upload detected. In that case, we managed to be compliant and secure. Our last example would be image classification. Sensitive information is not necessarily embedded in text. It can also be image. Architecture design, system design is something that is very sensitive to an organization. As attacker can get his hands on such diagrams, he can understand how to breach the organization or breach the application. And in that case, we managed to block it in real time using our advanced detection techniques. So now let's see how does it look like from the investigation point of view, post-incident. So in the CMA, we have basically three ways of governing data. We have, of course, we are also getting alerts for data violations externally, but we also have monitoring dashboards for governing data. So the first one is under security, data protection. This is the way we can govern data in inline, the network side, and also via API in our business critical apps. For the sake of the demo, let's focus on the inline. What we can see here is, first of all, to understand which rules has been violated. So we can see here secrets leakage and PII sharing and credit cards and so on. And this is the place where we understand what has been violated. Next to it, we can also observe trends of violations over time to spot anomalies. We can understand the origin, where the data was leaked from, the event severity, what type of data was actually leaked. And this is our first starting point to govern data and understand where is the leakage. On top of that, we had our second dashboard, our monitoring dashboard, which is the application dashboard, which monitors and basically govern application usage overall. So what we can identify in this dashboard is first, risky applications that are being used and employees potentially sharing sensitive information with them. We can see the exact activities that they are doing there, but we also have at the bottom the data protection section where we can see exactly what type of data was leaked in my or what was tried to be leaked in my organization. We can also have a breakdown by application to understand where is my data was leaked to and what type of data. In that case, we can say Gmail, source code and access keys and tokens was trying to be exfiltrated through Gmail. We can see the policy violations over time again to spot anomalies. When we can see also the top users sharing the most sensitive information. In that case, we can see Ron shared with sensitive information with 9 different applications, and this is the data that he was sharing. And of course, we can also monitor every file upload and to see spot all policy violations. So this is basically our second monitoring dashboard that we'll be able to understand where the data is. The third and the non-trivial one is the inventory of applications that are being used. But the most interesting part here are the plugins, which are basically the third-party applications that have access to organizational apps, to business-critical apps. Employees tend to connect every application that they need in order to be more productive, and they don't care what permissions they provide to those applications. So in that case, it's another path for exfiltrating data for risky applications. In that case, we can see that someone has connected ChatGPT to the corporate Entra ID. Someone has connected it, as you can see here, ChatGPT connected to Microsoft Entra ID with high permissions. And this is exactly the list of permissions that were granted to ChatGPT. And this is the user. So again, this is another path to exfiltrate data. So this is why it's important, those monitoring dashboards, to understand where is my data. So let's, now that we realized how to have a high level view of the data, let's have a deep dive into initial investigation. So initial investigation will be in the events. I created a custom preset for more convenience initial investigation. And we can see exactly all the events that occurred for data leakage. So if we'll go for the in this list, what we will see here as an example, we'll see a user, Ron, uploaded the file to Dropbox. The file contained access keys and tokens. The action was blocked, and we can open the initial investigation drawer, which will provide us the full visibility and understanding what happened in this specific activity. So again, we can see that the action was blocked. We can see the user who uploaded the file into Dropbox. It contained source code. This is also the file name, the full path URL, and the rule that was violated, what type of data was found. And we also have forensics to actually validate if it was a false positive or not. So we will know if we should act upon it or not. So whenever we press view for evidence and confirming the message, we can see exactly and validate that indeed it was access keys of AWS. And we can also download the original file that the user is trying to upload. So this was the initial investigation to just understand this activity and the context of it. But if we want to understand the full picture and have a deep dive investigation, we'll go to Home Stories Workbench. This is the place where we manage all the stories of the detection and response. And we can see here exfiltration attempt to web-based email category. So whenever we press here, this is basically the place where we are getting the full information to have a full end-to-end investigation for the source, what exactly happened, what is the destination, where is the leakage, and what do I need to do next. So I have all the evidence, all the forensics, and to understand the pattern behind the data leakage. So as you can see here, we can see the attack distribution in that case to understand how the leak has actually happened, to what targets, what is the destination, and we also have the actual forensics here for further and deep investigation. But like every detection and response story, what we can see is in many cases, thousands of events, and analyzing them might take a while. So this is why we also introduce our AI summary using our AI assistant that will basically summarize all what happened here in this specific story, analyze all the thousands of different events, and provide you insights and recommendations of what to do next. So what we basically see is that we went from selecting a use case up to configuring the DLP in order for enforcement. We saw a violation for insider risk, PII protection, data exfiltration, and prevented it in real time up to governance via our dashboards, initial investigation, and deep investigation using DLP stories. So this is an end-to-end coverage of what Cato basically provides. And with Cato, what you are basically getting is first comprehensive coverage for both managed and unmanaged devices, since we are also working from both network side, the inline part, and also what we call out of band via API. We integrate with your business critical apps. This provides data protection inside your business critical apps for your corporate data, for mostly for also for unmanaged devices where the employees are not necessarily connected through Cato. What we are getting also is better protection. Since our DLP is embedded within the Cato platform, it shares context with all the security tools that Cato has and all the integrations that Cato has. So what we are basically getting is a single platform with a single context engine for capable of correlating all the signals for better anomalies detection and data exfiltration events. And last, we're getting reduced IT burden since we are in a unified console. We are built in one platform for seamless experience. So up until now, we basically discussed about what we currently have. So it is a good time to discuss about what's coming next. So before I'll start sharing the roadmap and what's coming ahead, as a disclaimer from legal point of view, I must say that this is our plans, this is what we're working on these days, but it is still subject to changes. So when we're looking ahead, up until these days, basically, we went on the multi-layered security approach. We understand that the market is maturing, the security landscape is maturing, the threat landscape is maturing, and this is why we also preparing ourselves to be the next generation of the enterprise security. What exactly does it mean? It means that hackers or attackers are leveraging AI and advanced techniques to actually breach organizations these days. And this is why so far we introduced multi-layered security approach, and this is the right approach for starting from the network to cloud apps, data security. Now we have AI security, all of that with adaptive access and zero trust. And this is the right architecture. On the other hand, now, with the rising AI and large language models, we can have a better context aware detections. What it actually means that we will be able to actually understand the full context of every activity, to have behavioral patterning and understanding the context for having better prevention and protections. So let's understand exactly what does it mean. Understanding the context is not only looking on specific activity and analyze it with static controls. It means that every activity is being analyzed compared to what we've seen before and with a context aware detection engine, meaning that for every activity, we'll be able to see who exactly is the user, what is his role, what is behavioral patterns, what is the destination that he's trying to reach, what type of data usually passes and transfers in this channel, where exactly and how. We will analyze it all over for all the context that we have from our different security engines and integrations, and we will basically be able to assess in real time if this action is legit or not in a static way, but in an adaptive way, meaning that the same action for different users will be different. For some, so let's understand exactly what does it mean. It means that we want to have context-aware security, which basically reduces the false positive rate, but still increases the protection. For example, And the R&D team probably shares code, right? They are sharing code with each other, they're transferring code, and this action might be legit. But for the marketing team, this action might not be legit and might be potential data exfiltration. So the idea here is that the system and the engine will understand the full context of the activity based on the behavioral patterning that were happening in the past. So for that, in order to actually achieve this goal, we already have in general availability our GPUs. We want to be in our POPs, our points of presence. In order to actually apply those adaptive controls, context aware, and have those advanced models running in real time, need to have the right architecture for that. The right architecture is to actually use GPUs, the graphical processing unit, which is basically a processing unit capable of analyzing complex data at scale. And basically, we can run advanced AI and LLMs models in real time over our POPs across the world or on POPs of points of presence, and to have deep context of what we actually see and to share it across our engines for cross-engine correlation. So again, in order to achieve this context and have prevention, adaptive prevention in real time, we need to have cross-engine correlation in the right architecture, and which is context aware. And this is exactly why we introduced already our GPUs across the world that are available for having advanced models, and it will keep growing, and we will basically develop more and more models for that. Few examples that some of them are already implemented today. Better phishing detection. We use basically our models, our advanced models for better phishing detections. We also capable of identifying DGA, domain generation algorithm, a known tactic used by attackers to basically expose thousands of different domains that hopefully that some one of them will not be caught by traditional engines. So this is exactly where the place where our advanced models capable of detecting those domains. We also use it today for preemptive defense, for dynamic data leakage prevention. We introduced recently our dynamic threat prevention capabilities, relying exactly on advanced models that are doing behavioral profiling for all the entities and deciding what's good and what's not, and what's bad and what's good, based on what we've learned so far. And the idea is to basically prevent the next leakage. And lastly, LLM-based data classification, which is coming soon, is which means basically that whenever we analyze data, whenever we trying to understand if it contains sensitive information or not, we will use LLMs to understand the full context of the data that we are scanning and trying to assess whether sensitive information is embedded there, which does not necessarily will be caught by traditional DLP engines. So basically, what we are seeing and what we are going to is a shift toward the next generation of DLP, which means automated intent-based data security. So now I'm going to share basically the plan and the steps that we are going to have and how does the next generation of DLP look like? So first of all, it would be automatic. It would be hands-free, meaning whenever you onboard to the next generation of the DLP, what you'll get is basically an automated data classification for you to understand where is your data, what type of data do you have, so you'll know better how to actually fine tune your policies. So what we're basically saying is that fully automated data discovery, doesn't matter where it is, will provide you the full visibility and mapping of all data in motion, where your data resides, where does it go, and what type of data, and where are your crown jewels. We will do it all by the LLM-based detections. So up until today, we have good coverage and good detection engines, but we want to actually leverage the POPs, the GPUs that we have to actually classify the data better. So this is where the LLM-based detections kicks in for advanced sensitive data detection. It will be expanded across all channels. Today, we provide good coverage for both network and the SaaS via integrations, but we also going to expand to the cloud, to the email, up to the endpoint, And we are basically getting the full package to understand where is our sensitive information and how to protect it. The next thing, and it's most exciting for me at least, is the autonomous controls. As I mentioned earlier, we will not rely on static controls anymore, meaning there is a shift in the world for all security products, basically, from static controls to hands-free autonomous controls, smart controls, meaning that the system and the engine, the DLP engine, will adapt to the threat and to potential threat and adapt its rules. So we won't have static controls anymore that are either over permissive or over blocking. We'll have adaptive controls based on the use case, based on the patterns that we've learned. And the system will basically understand the full context of the activity and decide if it should be blocked or if it is legit. The meaning here is hands-free DLP solution, which provides automated classification and also adaptive controls, autonomous controls. And of course, it will be with human in the loop that will control what is right and what is wrong, just for you. But you will be able to decide what is the level of autonomy that you would like to have. Of course, whenever there is a block and there is a data leakage prevention, we basically alert regarding those situations. And lastly, we will provide an investigation copilot for seamless investigation for you basically to understand the full picture and it goes hand by hand with you and provides you recommendations, insights, and what you actually seen and how to actually mitigate potential threats in the future. So this is how the next generation of DLP will actually look like. Automated discovery using LLMs across all channels. Everything is autonomous, everything is working for you. You'll get an alert and you'll investigate it seamlessly using our Copilot. And this is exactly the point where you need to understand why Cato is the platform for that. Cato is a single platform built bottom up, sharing context with all of its security tools and what we've seen over the network, over the endpoint. We also integrate with your business critical apps, with your security tools, and we basically have the right platform to build this context for the AI models, for the LLMs, to have better decisions, to take better decisions and better actions later on. So with that, let's move on to the wrap up. Back to you, Dimitris. Thank you all.
Thank you so very much, Ron. And I hope everyone enjoyed that very, very educational demo. So as we move forward to wrap up this webinar, so today we just talked about the capabilities, the extensive capabilities of our DLP solution. And I'm pretty sure many of you are quite impressed with what we have to offer and what we are delivering to help protect your sensitive data. In our next webinar, we are going to be talking about our AI security capabilities within our AI native framework. And this is going to be very exciting as well too. And I really encourage everyone to attend and sign up for this particular webinar. So I would like to actually close this out with another poll question. Okay. So this one is, are you ready to try Cato DLP? And I will give everyone about 30 seconds to respond to this one. Okay, great. Good answers are coming in right now. Okay, so another 10 seconds and then we can move on to our Q&A. Okay, perfect. I'd like to thank everyone for your participation and your responses. And at this point, I would like to thank you for your attention. And now we're into the Q&A portion. And myself and Ron will be available to respond to some of your questions.
So thank you, Dimitris. And thank you all for joining this session and staying here. So now we'll get some questions from the chat. And for the questions that we will not make it today, we'll make sure to answer them tomorrow. So we'll basically start from the most frequent questions. Okay, so number one, we are in the finance industry and have noticed more and more web applications are implementing man-in-the-middle controls. TLS inspection causes the application to stop working. How can we utilize this DLP when vendors require us to remove the TLS inspection? Okay, so thank you for raising it. It's a really good point. TLS inspection indeed uh, prevents us from doing content inspection over the network. This is true. However, we do suggest an alternative in that case. The alternative would be first for your business critical apps data first to integrate and provide DLP via API. There we will be able to do content inspection. We don't have the TLS issues that we have over the network, right? When applications are doing certificate pinning. And on top of that, uh, as you would saw on the roadmap items, we are working these days on our endpoint DLP solution, which basically means that we will be able to do inspection also on the endpoint level. So this is something that we currently focus on API, and soon and in the future, it will be part of the endpoint DLP solution. Next question. Can we apply DLP for a secured file without bypass TLS? Again, with respect to TLS, whenever an application is actually doing certificate pinning, we will not be able to do enforcement on the network side. So we do recommend to use APIs to integrate your business critical app, so we will be able to secure your data there. So this is the second question. Third, how are you training the AI agent for the data sensitivity, and how do you adjust that for organizations? Data classification has been around for a long time, so can the agent ingest existing classification that already exists to learn? Great question. So we provide basically out of the box AI models, right? So the AI models, our research team has worked really hard to actually train them, and they adapt to the context of what they're seeing in order to actually identify sensitive information. In order to tailor it to your organization, we provide the custom ML classifiers. This is your way basically to upload your sensitive data templates or samples, and the model will be trained based on that and will be able to detect sensitive information that is tailored to your organization. So just to wrap it up, our classifiers are basically pre-trained, and you can also provide your own sample data for training model that is trained to your specific organization. Next question, can the logs in Cato give more information on why something was blocked by DLP? My other control for DLP will say found an SSN that starts with 256-4, which allows us to search the document to see if it is really an SSN or some other numbers. This helps us either fine-tune the rules or allow us to explain it to management. So I'm not sure if you're all familiar with that, but we have our forensics feature. When you can also basically connect your storage, and upon a DLP violation, and whenever we identify data leakage, we will send the forensics into your storage. We do not store it in Cato. And basically, when you access our CMA, the Cato management application, you will be able to retrieve it and to see the forensics for a seamless investigation, as I basically demoed earlier. So this is something that is available, and I encourage you to connect your storage so you'll have also forensics to validate false positives. Can Cato detect and block if someone posted a screenshot that contains confidential details? So the answer is yes. Our DLP solution basically have two parts for image classification, image-based detections. The first one is OCR. OCR basically is optical content recognition, which means that whenever we identify an image and we start scanning an image, we extract the text out of it and we try to match it if it actually contains sensitive information within it. So this is one engine that So if the screenshot actually contained sensitive information, someone took a screenshot of a document or something like that, the ORCR will kick in and basically be able to catch it. And the second classifier is the image classifier. As I showed in my demo, we have a classifier capable of classifying images. As I mentioned, sensitive information can be embedded in images, engineering diagrams, passports, credit cards, screenshots. So this is the place where we'll actually use the image classifier to classify images and decide whether we want to approve them or not, to block them or not. Next question. Can we allow enterprise versions of ChatGPT where our data is not using in training the LLM and block free versions that are? So yes, I'm not sure if you are all familiar with all the variety of features that we have in our CASB and DLP solution, but basically we can create a policy saying that accessing ChatGPT, the free version, when we identify that it is trained on our data, the prompts and the interaction is blocked, can be blocked, and other actions are allowed. We can also use the tenant awareness feature. So we can also decide that we would like to actually allow access on the tenant. In our case, in Cato, we have basically a policy saying access to ChatGPT is allowed only for the corporate tenant. And this is also something that we already have today in our CASB. And on top of that, if you want to apply also data control rules, you can also do that. We have the full granularity. So it is available for ChatGPT. You can use the tenant awareness feature and look for it. You can use also the AI assistant within the CMA. It will help you and guide you how to actually configure it. Okay, next question. Does Cato DLP block USB file transfer? How does that work? So the answer is currently no. We have two modes of inspection. Currently, it's network inspection or API-based inspection, meaning we integrate with your business critical apps. So whenever we'll have the endpoint DLP solution, we'll have this capability as well. Great. So next question. How do we identify user groups and which apps they use? We have scheme imported user groups, but it's hard to implement. We're basically naming CASB DLP rules with the scheme imported user group name to identify user group for a role-based access. So great question. So we recently basically launched a new feature that we also pull from the scheme. We also pull the data regarding the departments. So you can basically create rules very, I mean, we just launched this feature, so it's in gradual rollout. So you will be able basically to do granular control based on the departments in your organization. So up until today, you did it by user groups, but you can also do it per department. Does the DLP solution work for all operating systems? So the answer is yes, since we are doing network inspection. So either if the client is installed on the device or the user is in the site behind the socket, it means that is connected to the Cato Cloud. And whenever a device is connected to the Cato Cloud, it doesn't matter in which operating system it was originated from. Beside that, as I mentioned, we also integrate with the business critical apps via API to have data protection there. And last question for today, and we will continue tomorrow to answer the questions and we'll publish it. Is the installation of Cato agent on the endpoints required to obtain this DLP functionality? So as I mentioned, it's not a requirement. It can work whenever you go, and basically in several ways. Either you are behind what we call behind the socket within a site and you don't have any agent installed, or you have an agent installed. You can also have our browser extension installed in case of a contractors or bring your own device use case. And we recently launched our enterprise browser as an FYI. So basically we have many, many different modes for doing DLP inspection via API, via the enterprise browser, the browser extension, via agent, or just behind the socket. Okay, So we ran out of time. So thank you all for joining. We'll be answering the rest of the questions tomorrow and we'll publish it.
Very good job, Ron, on the Q&A there. And I'd like to again thank everyone for joining our webinar. Ron stole my thunder. I was going to remind everyone that we are going to be responding to the remainder of the questions via email and getting those to you within the coming days. So again, thank everyone for your attention. Thank you for joining this webinar, and we look forward to seeing you on our next webinar about AI security. Guys, have a great day.
Have a great day. Bye.